beginning that almost 80% of the new generation committed to the ASEAN identity. I think that's my point. And the last point about these challenges, not only in terms of institutionalization, imagination, how we can keep a permanent commitment at the higher level, at the lower level, or people's level. I have a problem of really the term of the imagine community. Imagine community. I think you ended your book with the imagine community. I don't think this term is no longer serves the purpose to describe ASEAN. I think the term has been depicted early on when scholars begin to study Southeast Asia. I think Stanley Tambaya and others pick up this. I think this term has to be qualified now because you see a lot more institutionalization in ASEAN or in Southeast Asia. And like it or not, it is here to stay. People like it. As Professor Amita very clearly mentioned that it is the people's push for the identity. To me, it depends on the perception of the people. It's no longer imagined. People perceive that ASEAN or Southeast Asia is real. It is a perceived community now. It's not an imagined community. I think so. I think we need more debate on this new concept before we can move on and become a real community in 2015. I think this is my last observation. And I think I like to hear some of the responses from Professor Amitabh on these issues. Perhaps he can write a new book on these comments that we have on this panel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ajahn Panitan. Now I will go to Ajahn Ukrit Pathamanan, who is the director of Mekong Research Center, Institute of Asian Studies, Chulalongkorn University. One of his publications is the Thaksinization of Thailand with Duncan McCargo, which is a very famous one, the book. And his recent publications include Thailand and the personalization of the party leader, Thailand's political leadership, parties and citizens, and many publications that I won't be able to read all of them here. And of course, he specializes in about Southeast Asia, Thailand, and Thailand relations to Southeast Asia as well, Thailand's political economy in ASEAN and political economy in Thailand. So please, Ajahn Ukrit, about 10 minutes.
About 10 minutes, yeah. Thank you, Ajahn Surat. I have just 2 points. One point is about the Professor Amita books, The Making of Southeast Asia. I think this book is a very good book on terms of the international relation studies, especially on balancing between state and non-state actors. Professor Amitas always puts upon on the state relation, and in some point he raised a new issue, very interesting in the Southeast Asia on the non-state issue. For example, I very happy when I read chapter 8. It's about the globalization. I think Professor mentioned on the financial crisis in 1997, hamburger crisis, 2008, the terrorist bombing in Bali, the SARS, pandemics, and tsunamis. I think that is a very good approach for international studies to more understand just about the state and state relation or bilateral agreement, even though multilateral by framing on AFTA, on EAC, on WTO, for example, because it seems to be this factor is a very effect to the whole region. The second point is related on globalization as well and the regions. Because I am still young, so I think this book, I not demand to professor to read a new book because I know that professor wrote many books on international relations and politics. I highly appreciate. But I just mentioned on the future of the making of Southeast Asia. One thing I mentioned on the globalization, I think I really focus on dynamism in various terms. First, when I am young, I think there are very debatable on new members of ASEAN. I think this debatable is undebatable now. I mean, Greater Mekong sub-region for Laos now, Laos GDP growth is very, very steady. Okay, they're still poor, but the future of Laos seems to be better than the past. So when the outsider worry about the participation on ASEAN of Laos because of the funding or financial support lacking, it's not true. Laos is very, very active in that sense. And on the other hand, on the Myanmar, at the beginning, many outsiders, especially from the Western countries, concerned very much about the Myanmar. Myanmar will destroy identity of the ASEAN. It's not true. Now, Myanmar is a key important factors to not just ASEAN, to the world. Almost of leaders in the world revisit or make the first visit Myanmar because it seems to be the factor of new ASEAN now put or encourage a more exciting development of ASEAN development. So the second point is about the future as well. I think I very interesting on anti-establishment in Southeast Asia. For example, online digital resistance in Malaysia, Indonesia, in Myanmar, in Thailand, even though in Vietnam. In fact, it is not based on just about the technology. It's not just we have online or mobile phone, no. But it seems to be, we cannot conclude that what is the symptom of it. But it's like the spring. It's like the participation of the people and can affect directly to the establishment in many countries in Southeast Asia. I talk with my friend in Jakarta. They are very active in politics, and they also utilize the network online as well. I think this is a new phenomena we have to think in the future. The last thing I think, even though I am political scientist, I look Southeast Asia in the next 2 decades. One very important, many scholars always drawn its possibility of aging society. Yes, this point is true. I think it maybe go there. But on the other hand, I realize that there are very urbanization in Southeast Asia, and there are a new generation as well related on the online demand, for example. So what they think about the society, what they think about the supply and public response from the state, for example. I think consumerism need more, maybe more than politics. They need maybe transparency. They need a good offer from the government for the healthcare scheme, for example. I think this is a very important trend to the Southeast Asia, and maybe we are very good for discuss in the future in terms of the scholar and policy maker in Southeast Asia. Thank you.
Thank you ครับอาจารย์อุกฤษนะครับ and now I go to the last person Professor Emeritus Surichai Wankao who currently serves as Director Center for Peace and Conflict Studies Chulalongkorn University. He has been Professor of Sociology Chulalongkorn University since 2000. Oh, this is wrong. Okay, the professorship, sorry. His research interests are wide-ranging: sociology of development, environmentalism, sustainable development, social movements, endogenous social theory, and many things related to Japanese studies. Of course, he has a very long CV and very well known in Thailand, so I won't be able to read it all. Professor Surichai, about 10 minutes, please, if possible.
Thank you, Ajahn Surat. I cannot talk if I do not congratulate Professor Amitav Acharya for the very interesting, very engaging, and very comprehensive treatment of the region, and also from different perspectives have been taken into it. This is the first point, but I don't want to speak too much on this, although I really appreciate the conceptual treatment of the whole issue of the data along the line of not only specific discipline, but in a broader scope of or interdisciplinary treatment. So I just came back from Hat Yai yesterday from Prince of Songkhla University from a forum on universities and peace process. I was imagining that maybe this kind of book, this book itself, could be a kind of platform for engaging actors beyond Bangkok. It is already friends from Kacamada and friends from Singapore, but I would like to see further, and also for the future's sake, I think intergenerational engagement on this wonderful book would be quite interesting. I mean the students. So for such forward-looking approach for the region with the historical depth that he has facilitated us to go through, I really cannot avoid that we have been able to, we are quite privileged to see that he used the word indigenization, although he is now, as our Southeast Asian, locating also in the US. But in the global transnational world like this, we also see a broader meaning of indigenization. So now I have, in the very complex, globalized context of the region and the region in the making, the issue of regional integration and the issue of the role of ASEAN in the regional integration is a very serious challenge for everyone, because the verbal treatment of the three pillars clearly spelled out balanced pillars, but yet in actuality the economic pillars have been the most dominating, the most resourceful. So the book is a facilitating mechanism into engaging or even debating with a very imbalanced treatment of ASEAN, with a future orientation of a more balanced integration. I mean beyond just economic, beyond the idea that the market can create regional identity of human beings. I don't have a full doubt that market cannot create regional solidarity as a regional entity, but it can create networks of a lot of common interest or competitive interest. So we should not overlook that part. I am thankful for his point of that. So that was my first point. My second point is about identity politics. Everything very interesting was said by friends before me. The issue about actors in identity politics in contemporary as well in the future of the region in the making. I do have very strong agreement with his points, but I feel I was hoping that the language of official and non-official regionalism, the language of state-sponsored regional identities was clear, but the other non-state is sometimes clear, but sometimes not too clear. So here I think the problem is about dichotomy treatment, dichotomous binary treatment. So I think he himself is beyond that, but I hope discussing the future, how can the more pluralism as a principle of multi-actors in the making of the region could be seen in his future with Southeast Asia. So that part, especially in the light of my colleague mentioning JI, he also very clearly mentioned the very interesting emerging non-official Southeast Asian ASEAN, including alternative network for ASEAN, alternative ASEAN for Myanmar. There are several issues, even concerning with the think tanks, like Focus in the Global South, which is based on campus, with the international network of the region, Via Capacina, network of farmers working across the borders based in Jakarta. So we see this not only binary, but a more complex, multi-level actors emerging along the line of the paper, the book. But I would like to see how the future could be seen in a more establishment or non-establishment language as such, but a bit, establishment or anti-establishment as a simplistic language for a more healthier democratic development of our region. So in that light, I am sure he has some answer to it, but I would like very much to see that issue of direct engagement, because the political uncertainties in the region for the future, it has seen through the issue of Burma. Aung San Suu Kyi was completely illegal person, but within a very short time, the earthquake happened and she became a legitimate part, but we don't know what will, all the context will happen. So in that light, I think we need a firmer ground, a firmer perspective on how we should like to ground ourselves in a more pluralistic engagement with ASEAN and with the region, in a healthier vision of the region, beyond just the leader or the leaders, which is also important, the leader summit, but that need to be engaged. My last point is about, here you see Southeast Asia in the book very well treated in the context of history and the Southeast Asian in the context of maritime and also the mainland Southeast Asia. We are in Bangkok, which you don't feel the maritime. But if you go to the south, we see Thailand as a part of the maritime Southeast Asia. And we also see the poverty of Bangkok consciousness about ASEAN in that way. Yeah? So in that sense, I would like to see, in the light of the ecological and cultural problems. Just imagine like haze, for example. I would like to see how the regional commons, the common resources that we use together like ASEAN, how would he see them in the light of the future future questions of the region in the making beyond just state-centric definition of territorial issues, etc., which we cannot neglect that part, but beyond that, we also have a responsibility for the commons, regional commons and global commons for the humanity. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for all the discussions. But as I have promised to give some time to the floor, and I think I will be inviting at least one or two to three questions from you, and then Professor Amitabh Acharya can answer or make comments back. Anyone from the floor? Please make sure be short, precise on the point, and then Professor Amitabh, Ajahn Satipan. Yes, microphone.
As part of the organizer, I do not mean to monopolize the floor. I mean, the students are all here. I have 2 points to make. It's after a brilliant presentation, of course, which invite all of us to now read the book. I myself not yet there, but I will. And as well as a friend discussion. Very first point I think is we all discussed, and I think it's the story of ASEAN also is very much the story of the up and down, you know. There's no what you call the avenue, you know, like a highway. So ASEAN been the struggle, I mean, in part of Southeast Asia, try to help Southeast Asia to we have ASEAN, and in that construction, now is the story is up, okay. ASEAN been, you know, that everyone love to see ASEAN, and I will not go, I don't know, because part of Professor Amitabh will say also, so ASEAN become the model, kind of. You said that Northeast Asia, well, there's no such a thing, I mean, cannot compare with ASEAN, sort of. So that means as a model, you know, for constructing, you know, the sub-regional, if they take ASEAN, that can be, you know, learn for other, because we used to learn from the EU, right? So now we say we have real ASEAN for developing countries. So perhaps a broader perspective, you know, that's is because the book is also the part of like a story from within. So building ASEAN is also building from within. We try, you know, at one point, for example, when we are down with the question of Myanmar, you see, so that's everyone blame is ASEAN is how you going to do this with Myanmar? So now it's up. Myanmar come in, so it's a plus. Before it's like you know a negative for ASEAN. And if you go back, of course, to during the Cold War, so there people said ASEAN the role is security, no other topics. So I think there's perhaps look in the future. I think there's perhaps what would be the next. It could be you know it's not a rough road. It will be a rough road. So taking Ajahn Ukrit, you know, 20 years ahead, what would be the challenges Ajahn Panithan, Ajahn Surijat, and Midi have said. Second point thing is also we go very far. I mean, the last fighting you mentioned, you know, without ASEAN, there were no Southeast Asia. Well, that's nice. I just only tell the student often that, well, if you would like to understand Southeast Asia today, you cannot go with it without understanding ASEAN. So that's for sure. So that's a linkage I can see. And a lot of friends, you know, from your presentation also, see that interaction is I take a lot of interactions, very important. And actors, as Muhadi mentioned, Jan Surichai also look at the commons, future. We cannot lead to the leaders. So that's something I take very important. I mean, that kind of the interaction perhaps we can write a different story. I must say perhaps this is the kind of the I think is this is looking holistic. I mean, from the first few chapters of the book, I believe as I listened here, that we're not talking from any one discipline, although you move into IR later approach, some people said, well, but I think this that holistic approach will, and that interaction perhaps give the different story of telling, understanding ASEAN. So here is perhaps some of the very first book, I mean, this modern Southeast Asia, modern ASEAN that we need to understand. So, well, perhaps if we include more interaction actor, will that be different story of Southeast Asia? That's my question, I mean a broad question. Thank you.
Okay, one more from female participant. Gender balance, because it's all being male dominated. So, any person? Any woman? Oh yes, okay, this is Anupama Musali, our first PhD student from India studying here in Thailand. Yes.
Well, some of you talked about ASEAN being one of the factors of construction of Southeast Asia and the factor of construction of Southeast Asia. So before ASEAN, what was Southeast Asia? So is it and that's one of the questions. And second, with my limited reading, I had an impression that the gap between ASEAN and Southeast Asia was more like lacking identity and developing a collective identity, and more like lacking awareness about each other to collective awareness about each other. Is it this much, or there's more to it? I would appreciate a comment on this. Thank you.
Okay, so as a moderator, I should not be asking question, but so tempting, so I would like to also ask you one. Professor Suthipan rightly mentioned about European Union, but European Union right now is not in good shape, even though they received Nobel Prize recently, okay? Cyprus, Greece, and so on. So internal economic disaster can be a very important factor. It can be a very important challenge to ASEAN. Professor Panithan talked about the rice pledging program and so on. Are you worried that the internal economic structure within each nation of ASEAN as ASEAN members can be a very potential threat to the future of ASEAN? So this is one. The rest now, let me hear all from Professor Amitav Acharya. I bring two microphones because of the sound system, so make sure that everyone hear the answer. Speak closer.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for all your comments. I know it's a cliche for a speaker to say this, but if I ever meant this sentence, I mean it now, that this is the best set of comments I have had in my book, really. And it's not a cliche. It's not what I'm saying just because I'm here and I'm invited and I'm being polite to my hosts. This is the kind of commentary that will make you think and even rethink, not only not only make plans for the future, but also rethink what you have already written and create even a degree of self-doubt about things that I have written, whether they were actually right or not. And that's a fantastic feeling. I know it's not always very comforting, but it's a good feeling for an author to have. That I know a lot of authors think when they've done the book, that's it. They don't care. I don't really care. I have a tenured professorship, and I don't need positive comments. But this is the kind of comment that makes you rethink your assumptions, and I think several of the points you made actually make me now go back and reflect on them. And of course, the natural response of an author is to rationalize and try to counter what has been said, respond. But I'm not going to do that, except where there may be some clarifications I can make. But I think some of the points that were made today really goes into the heart of things that I'm trying to grapple with. Now, this has been an enormously complex undertaking. It took me 10 years to live in the region to write the first edition. And between the first and the second edition, there was a gap of 13 years because I wasn't sure I could write a second edition, which is really revised, because this book generated so many commentary. It took on the Southeast Asian Studies community in a frontal way, partly because Southeast Asian Studies is not dominated by people like me. I am the president-elect of the International Studies Association. I have been to only one meeting of the Association of Asian Studies because we socialize differently, and that Southeast Asian Studies is dominated by historians, sociologists, anthropologists, not political scientists, and certainly not IR scholars. So I was an intruder, and I can tell you this book, the first edition of the book was reviewed by somebody as the best book on Southeast Asia, regionalism, and the worst book on Southeast Asia, both of them from political scientists. So I thought that was kind of interesting because I thought it certainly was not ignored. It was liked or disliked. It really created a bit of a stir in the field. And most people who comment on this book, either to me directly or even in the reviews, and many of the reviews of the book you'll find in the website, my website, they say that this is either a good book or a bad book, but never to be ignored. So in that context, the comments you made makes me think even more that maybe some of the issues that I've raised are really controversial. There are no one answers to this, but I should go back and think about them. And let me highlight a few of these issues. The first, I thought Panithan's point about an imagined community versus a real community. He is right that I actually, because I am very addicted to the imagined community idea. Imagined community was Benedict Anderson's idea of describing nationalism. And it was me who actually, for the first time, took it from nationalism and applied it to regionalism. And it's hugely popular in the field, in Western Europe. It has got a cultist feeling, the idea of a region as an imagined community. And I've got a lot of mileage out of that. But it's good to have somebody question that. And I actually, when I was listening to Panithan, I thought, he may be right, maybe Southeast Asia is no longer an imagined community. It was a good discourse to draw on, but time to move on in the future. And this is something I'm going to have to think about for another year or two, if I ever do another edition of this book, or even in my writing. But there's one comment I will make on this, not so much in defense of my argument. It is particularly interesting and probably unfortunate that sentence concludes my book. Probably shouldn't have done that. That Southeast Asia was an imagined community once, it could remain one in the future. I think that's probably not the best way to conclude the book. But I think what it signified to me was that there is still a major of unreality about Southeast Asia. It may not last. And I love this region. I mean, this is, as I said, this is my second love, aside from my wife. There's no other thing I love more than being in Southeast Asia. I'm not a native to the region. I came here, but as I said, I have every opportunity to study the Middle East, Europe. I go like dozens of times a year. But this is the reason I keep coming back to. So there is a personal bias here which gets into, and every author has that. But I should probably think of this in a different way. And, but I do think that this region still, I would love to see Southeast Asia not only grow, but dominate. It is, to me, the international relations 2.0. It's a non-hegemonic region. There's no hegemonic power in this region. It's not Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia. It is the most open region you can find. Not just in terms of visa and travel, but meeting people. When I started doing research in this region, I could knock at the door of people like General Sayud Kardapo, who is a Thai Supreme Commander. I could meet General Simatupang, the father of the Indonesian Army. I have never had any problem meeting people here. Try to do that in London, Washington, Singapore, or other places. Singapore may be a little different, but even there, it's an open region. And historically, it's an open region because of geography, but culture. So I would like Southeast Asia to provide the model. Also diversity. No other region you'll find has created a regional body which members are so diverse. And you were talking about European Union. Everybody is Christian, everybody is democratic. No big deal to have a regional organization. This is different in every possible way. Language, religion, history, I told you about different colonialisms. So if we're talking about post-hegemonic era, post-American world, where there's no single hegemon, people talk about non-polar or no man's world, things like that. This is the region that provides the model to me. Not for another region, for the whole world actually. So Sutipan, that's my answer. Southeast Asia is international relations 2.0. And I really want this to continue, but I'm not so sure. So I have to really, therefore, in that sense of saying, it is an imagined region, not because it hasn't become real, but it is still the possibility that it will unravel. And this is where we talk about the ups and downs of Southeast Asia. We have seen those downs in 1997, although I was one of the few people who argued that it will strengthen regionalism. And in my 1999 article, Realism, Liberalism, and Asian Economic Crisis, I said this will lead to a stronger regionalism. But I still think it is important to say, yes, what is the difference between perceived and imagined? Okay, I take that point. The other point Panitan makes is, what is the difference between Southeast Asia and ASEAN? Well, in a literal sense, or a pretty, a general sense, yes, ASEAN is a political purposive grouping. It's not political grouping, but it's a political project. It's a deliberate attempt by elites to create a region and regionalism. And Southeast Asia, when you talk about,